Uh-oh, looks like the cats have primate problems from Plundar. You should look at the Super 7 Thundercats Ultimates Monkian. Monkian is the leader of the Monkians from Plundar. He is a powerful and brutish warrior whose ape-like strength makes him the muscle of the mutants. Monkian is also incredibly agile, especially when climbing, swinging, and leaping through the tree branches of Third Earth. Because of this, he is often tasked with important reconnaissance missions for the mutants. Rarely seen without his signature helmet, Monkian's preferred weapon is his deadly flail. Doing another Thundercats Ultimates review, and the whole crowd goes bananas. Let's hope. Before we get a closer look at Monkian, let's go ahead and grab the tape measure just to see how tall the figure stands. Right to the very top of his helmeted head, Monkian stands about 6.5 inches in height, or the figure's roughly about 16.5 centimeters tall. For a couple of figure comparisons, while I don't actually have the one from Super 7, for a stand-in right now, I've got Jackalman here from Matty Collector. I don't actually have the Super 7, so I don't know if they've made the size smaller on Jackalman, but based on what I have right now, Jackalman and Monkian are about the same size. Jackalman, if anything, you could say his ears are a little bit longer, based only again on the one I have from Matty Collector, not from Super 7. Might still decide to get that Super 7 release at some point. Another figure we can also bring in is Mumm-Ra the Ever-Living. Get him to stand. Now, Monkian goes to about, the shoulder of Mumm-Ra. One thing I also do want to mention about Mumm-Ra is when I did the review of Mumm-Ra, I had the cape flipped around the other way. The red really should be on the outside. I had the red on the inside. I kind of like the red on the inside, maybe just because I'm a big fan of Dracula, but it really should be on the outside. One other thing, too, is when I attach the cape, there's actually a peg. I don't know if you can actually see it or not, but there's actually a peg right at the very top of his back. I put it there later on, but I found that the cape just didn't hold properly in place. So I'm still going to stick with the idea of actually attaching the cape to the ball peg on the neck of Mumm-Ra, because I think it's going to hold the best when it comes to displaying the figure. And while he's not necessarily part of the mutants, I guess he is still to some extent. This is also what Monkian looks like with Lion-O. Get Lion-O to still stand. I feel like when it comes to Thundercats Ultimates, while Super 7 have been doing a bang-up job on all the Ultimate releases, I feel personally there might be a time to maybe do a version 2 Lion-O. I know, again, like his body was based on more the Master Universe classics that Matty Collector had done back in the day, but I think his proportions are still a little bit off. I think maybe they should release maybe a version 2 Lion-O down the road, but at least this is what the figures look like when compared with Monkian that we'll be looking at in this video. As for the accessories that come included with Monkian, the figure comes included with his cannon shield. And while it's not actually firing cannons at the moment, Super 7 does afford some nice metallic gold for the front of the monkey's face. Ooh, ooh, ooh. Outside of that, outlined in brown, of course, you get some additional details, decos done in black. And on the back of the shield, there's a single handle that can attach onto the figure's hand. Now, it's a nice looking accessory, but when we consider all the other things that the figure comes included with, like for example his blaster, I sort of have to debate myself whether I'd rather display the figure with the cannon shield or if I'd rather start with the blaster. I end up starting the review with the blaster in his hand. I'm sure I'm going to wrap things up though with his flailing mace and cannon shield. Stay tuned for that. What is he going to do? What is he going to do? The cannon is nice. I feel like there may have been an opportunity where they could have added some additional paint. I mean, I feel like when looking at it from the front, it seems so absent. I mean, they probably have molded this all in the purple plastic, but I think there could have been an opportunity. If anything, paint the front of it so we know exactly what it's supposed to be doing. This does, again, fit into his hand. Now, he has right now hands for gripping any one of these accessories, but he also has swappable hands, too. I'm going to put that to the side. One of my favorites by far is the fact he comes included as well with his mace. The mace itself, while being plastic on the end, with sharp little, it's not super sharp, but these prickly little points on the end of it. He actually does have a real chain, and I think it's nice that they actually used a real chain. It drapes naturally the way it should in hand, and it's always nice when they get a chance, any company, not even just Super 7, but any company across the board, when they can actually use real working chains with all the links connecting them about. I love the idea that they can actually do that. Molded this in plastic, I don't think would have worked just as well. You get that, you have to have that natural feel, that natural drape that goes along with a real chain. Again, you got some additional silver work that's been added to the handle there, some brown around that as well. And again, all of these, again, can be fit into the figure's hands. One thing I will say, though, about the figure's hands is that they didn't use the softest of plastic. Mace is not something that you really have to worry about when getting into his hand, but when it certainly comes to things like his shield, for example, or even really for that matter, the blaster, you really do have to pry the fingers away from the hand, and you may even want to have to use hot water to do that. Prying it just right now, it's not something you can easily do. The blaster, fine, can probably fit in there, but really to get it around the handle, you're really going to want to heat the hand with hot water or even a hairdryer to get that plastic soft enough so you can actually do something with it. Taking the mace and putting that to the side. I did actually say that the figure came included with some swappable hands. Now, while we may be looking at these hands right now and you're thinking to yourself, wait a minute, isn't this the same hands as he got before? Well, actually, it's no. There's one thing I did actually miss when we looked at Tigra. Tigra, I made the comment of saying that the hands were identical, and I couldn't understand why they would have wasted the plastic to give us essentially the same hands. If you look at the hands themselves, they actually move the opposite way. When you look at the hands that are currently on the forums right now, the hinge is on the inside of the palm. In this case, actually, the hinge is on the outside of the palm, or on the sides of the palm. So they're slightly different hands. In fact, actually, let me just show you the difference between the two. Say the hinge is on the side, the hinge is in the middle. I don't think that really still warrants including a second set of essentially the same hands, but they included them anyways. By the way, as well, if you wanted to change the hands out, simply just wiggle them off, easily to remove from the sockets, and just pop in the extra hands. Now, again, like these hands allow you to hinge the hand this way. I mean, really, if they did use a ball joint, it would just be eliminating all the hassle of having to produce a second set of them. They simply could have just used the ball joint. You'd be able to move the hands probably the exact same fashion. One thing that the figure also comes included with as well is a pair of mauling hands. These hands are actually quite good too, because at the beginning of this review, what I ended up doing was I took the blaster gun and I put it into his hand. Again, not the softest of plastic, but we have to work with what we have. Just get that into his hand like that. And then if you take then the other hand, literally on the other side, just remove that, and take the appropriate hand, the mauling hand, what you can actually do is hold the undercarriage of the gun. If you wanted to have, like, for example, Monkian displayed with the gun in his hand. One last thing that the figure also comes included with, as you probably have already noticed by now, is a decapitated head off camera. It's not so much off camera, it's just off to the side of the figure. He comes also included with this screaming portrait. Personally, between you, me, and the other 7 people watching this video, I actually kind of like the screaming face a little bit more. Again, you can see how the more neutral expression. To be fair, honestly, this isn't the head sculpt that came with the figure when I got it out of the package. It was actually this head sculpt here. But I thought I did want to start things first by looking at the neutral expression and then moving over to what I thought to be the better looking of the 2 head sculpts. As you can see, like the fur is pretty much sculpted the same in both the cases. It looks also as well that they've used the exact same helmet. But yeah, the different expression to the face is one I probably would be more warming up to the idea of displaying with this head sculpt than what we get starting with. Again, to pop the head off, you simply just remove it from the ball joint, and pop it back on in place. Again, just to show you the difference between the two. I think really Super7 has done a great job on both the head sculpts. The paint is really good and super sharp on both. I really don't even notice any paint bleed whatsoever. It's hard to see, in fact, but he does actually have little pointed ears sticking out from the tufts of his hair. But it really gives you an opportunity to kind of see the additional sculpt work that they've added by putting in the tongue and painting it that red color. I also like the little bit of reflection that they have on the corners of the eyes. Just super cool, super detailed head sculpts in both the cases. But we're going to stick with this one for the time being, so we're going to kind of move the decapitated head out of the way as we look at the rest of the figure's body. Consistently, the colors are pretty good here. The only point I would probably point out is this part right here in the abdomen. It seems very obviously a different color than what we get for the rest of his torso. The arms, the top of the torso, and even for that matter, the bottom of his legs, all sort of match the same color that they use for the face. Face, you could say, is maybe just a tad bit lighter, but I think the colors are pretty consistent till you get around here. It's not that dirty, rusted brown that they use for Tigra, but still, I don't understand why this is a darker color. It's not as jarring, granted, as Tigra, but I do notice it right away that this section above all other pieces on this figure is the one color that stands out the most to me. Now, again, he's got some cool additional colors that they've added here as well. He's got the straps there around his arm of alternate colors of the medium and darker brown. He's got the little wrappings that he has around his leg, little spike that sticks out the side. This is actually a softer plastic, by the way. So this literally just drapes around his body. He's got himself just a front loincloth, so to speak. It's all done here in a nice dark kind of orangey red, and some additional fur. This is a nice little touch of detail I also like as well, is that they sculpted little parts to the fur that drape over top of the loincloth. You can see it, the amount of sculpt work that they also put into the loincloth. A really nice looking, nice job on their part. For the articulation on Monkian, the head is on a bulge, right? So we've already looked at it. It goes back and forth. It's going to be a little bit more limited because, of course, of how much additional sculptage there's on the sides of his shoulders. Did I just say sculptage? On the sides of his shoulders, so much extra fur that it's going to cause a little bit more problems when it comes to rotating his head back and forth. You can have the head looking up. You can have the head looking down. Only to about there, by the way. Not a lot at all. And, of course, he does have the upper torso crunch, so you can move the upper torso up and down. It's a little tighter on my figure, but I much rather have tighter joints than looser joints. The figure does also have a waist swivel, which, again, is a little on the more tighter side. Arms do come out, I would say, easily at a 90-degree angle bend. You can take the arms, move them forward. You can move them back. There's a swivel on the cut of on the bicep. I want to say thigh, but on the bicep here. Now, he only has a single hinge on the elbow. I was worried that perhaps where they actually put the strap here, that it would impede some of the articulation on the elbow, but not the case at all, actually. You can easily move it up and down, and that same place is where the arm can actually rotate back and forth. Hands rotate also all the way around. Now, again, with these hands, the hands also hinge up and down this way, but if you had it the opposite with the other hands, they would swivel back and forth this way. You kind of have to decide for yourself which way you're going to be displaying the figure to dictate which hands you decide to display the figure with. Legs do split out. This one side, though, as you can also see, too, it's only really by moving the leg that I did want to point this out. I've got what looks to be the leftover of plastic, probably left behind from the loincloth. I'm not really sure why it's making visits over here, but there's a little bit left behind. But really, like this strap that's covering in front of his thigh, you'd never be any the wiser until, of course, I just pointed it out to you guys. The legs go forward and back. There is a mild swivel at the top of the thigh. Only a single hinge on the knee. The knee is actually nicely hidden on this one side. It's a little more obvious on the other. Single hinge on the knee, but allows at least the lower leg to rotate back and forth. The ankles allow the feet to go up and down this way, and there is also an ankle pivot there as well. Yeah, I mean, I don't have Scythe. Scythe? I think that's his name. I don't have that figure yet. And, of course, I only have Jackalman, but the Jackalman that I have is actually from Super7. Once again, just to retrieve... from Matty Collector. Once again, to retrieve the Matty Collector Jackalman. Jackalman did have a couple of varied expressions. He actually had a really interesting expression on the Super 7 release that might lean me more to the idea of actually picking up that figure at some point as well. And at least I have myself the trio of mutants. I don't have Vulture Man. I don't even think they've actually released yet a Vulture Man. But again, a really nice looking batch of figures. I would say so far of the figures I've looked at here of Thundercats, granted, I'm not a channel that reviews as many of the Thundercats as much as I would like, but I think my favorite figures from what Super 7 have delivered of what at least I've picked up so far is Mummer the Ever-Living and Monkian. Monkian's got some great sculpting, great expression, especially on this head sculpt that they decided to pack along with the figure. Easily for me right now, my two favorite figures that they've done is Mummer the Ever-Living and Monkian that we looked at in this review. Yeah, I could probably see myself picking up now the Jackalman, even though I already have the one from Matty Collector. Scythe, the name from the other mutant, the leader of the mutants, goes for pretty crazy money right now. I hope at some point Super 7, like they've done in the past with other Thundercat releases, re-release Scythe, because I don't want to pay like the $80 to $100 that he's going for right now online. Scythe aside, though, Monkian has some really cool features going for him. Primarily, it's, of course, this primate's sculpting that really sells this figure for me. Not only is the sculpting really good, but the paint is top-notch. Other than just the one little area on the top of his thigh, I don't even know really how that got there, but at least you've got a strap that covers in front of it that you don't see, at least in my case, that additional red that's on the top of his thigh. The figure is well painted, well sculpted, and a ton of different cool accessories. Now, I did eventually get the cannon shield into his hand. I almost feel like the back of the handle didn't need to be complete. Probably should have just left the gap on the bottom of it, but you can actually take the handle. I did soften up the plastic in the hand just a little bit with a hairdryer, just so enough I could actually pry the fingers away from the palm. The fingers, by the way, with the nails being so sharp and so pointy, they're a little hard to kind of pull away right away. I would probably suggest softening the plastic just a little bit so you can get the cannon shield into his hand. I feel maybe, if anything, the cannon shield is a little small. Somehow, for some reason, I always think of the cannon shield being bigger in the cartoon. Other than that, though, I really like the look of Monkian quite a lot. Now, I did actually find this one over on Entertainment Earth. they've actually been really, really good for restocking a lot of their Thundercats figures. So basically, as they've been restocking them, I've been picking them up. I had my eye on Monkian for a while and just had to kind of essentially wait for the stock to replenish itself. Finally picked them up, and I'm very happy that I did as well. If you guys would also like to be happy and pick up Monkian for yourself, you can click the link down below that will take you on over to Entertainment Earth's website. You can also as well not only pick up Monkian, but the rest of the other Thundercats figures that they're regularly stocking. I can only hope again that they're going to be stocking Slythe. Don't want to be paying the prices that he's going for right now. What do you guys think of Monkian? Let me know down below in the comment section, maybe of the mutants that appeared in Thundercats. Which one is your favorite? I was like really Vulture Man as well. He was always shrieking, always making that horrible... What a great casted voice for Vulture Man. I don't know if we actually have a Vulture Man yet. I'm going to have to check online. Down the rabbit hole further I go. But what's your favorite mutant from Thundercats? Let me know down below in the comments section. And as well, if you enjoyed this video, hit with a like. If you're loving the content you're seeing and do want to stick around for more Thundercats and more videos, then make sure you hit the subscribe button down below and yes, turn on the bell notification. And while we have wrapped up right now the review for Monkian, it's definitely going to be a lot more videos coming away. As always, guys, thanks for watching. See you guys next time.